Welcome to the Inner Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Paul Ryan, and today I want to talk about building your self-confidence. We can have great plans for our life. We can have a vision for our life, a vision of all the things we will go and do and create. But we need to actually go and do and create those things. Often what's stopping people from creating the life they want is a lack of belief in themselves. And this lack of belief prevents them from taking action. It prevents them from doing the things they will need to do consistently to create the lives they want to create. So today I want to talk about self-confidence and what are the steps to building your self-confidence. Well, let's start by defining self-confidence. What is self-confidence? Well, confidence is simply the belief that you can achieve a task, a goal that you set out to achieve. And that can be anything from a very small day-to-day goal to a major life goal. But whatever goal you want to achieve, you need confidence. And confidence is simply the belief that you can achieve the goal that you set out to achieve. Now, I think there are three elements to confidence. There's what I call genetic confidence. So that's some people are just born with confidence, and by their nature, they seem to be really confident people. I look at that like some people are born with great musical talent or great sports skill or great business skill or whatever sort of skill they have. But some people are just naturally talented in some areas. In fact, almost all of us have natural talents, things that we are just born to be good at. Now, obviously, we need to practice, train, and develop those things, but we all have natural talents. And some people appear just to have the natural talent of confidence. They are just naturally confident. The second element of confidence is parental influence. Now, no matter what you're born with, no matter what your genetic confidence is, if you're brought up in a household that's extremely negative, that's extremely critical, that beats on your self-confidence all day long, and maybe you have parents who didn't have self-confidence, even if they were encouraging to you, maybe they lack self-confidence. So if you're brought up in a parental environment that is really harmful to your confidence and really beats on your confidence, so that's going to be very damaging and will have a big impact on the level of confidence you have as an adult. But the third part of confidence is the confidence we develop ourselves. And that's a skill. I believe confidence is a skill, almost like anything else in life. It's a skill that once we understand how to practice it, we can develop the skill, and by repetition, we get better and better and better. We can't control the first two. We can't control our genetic makeup. We can't control the parental environment we are raised in, but we can have huge influence on our own confidence. Now, how do we impact on our confidence? So we build our confidence by overcoming challenges, by setting goals, setting challenges, and by overcoming those challenges. And it really doesn't matter how big or small those challenges are. Once you set a challenge and you overcome that challenge, you deliver on that goal, you achieve what you set out to achieve, that will build your confidence. Now, what really helps to build the confidence is when you achieve a goal, when you achieve something you set out to achieve and overcome a challenge, that you take a moment to acknowledge that and let that register, let that sit in. Because what you're doing when you do that is you're doing the reps in the gym, you're building the muscles. It's like lifting weight. You are building the confidence muscle. And if you went to the gym tomorrow and started training in your biceps, you would take light weights and you would start lifting them. As you got stronger, you would add more weight. And bit by bit, week by week, you get stronger and stronger until you can lift a really heavy weight. Well, confidence is the exact same thing. We build on our confidence. Sometimes life throws us a major challenge, a challenge we do not feel we're ready for, a challenge we don't want to deal with. But we dig inside, we go deep, and we discover against the odds that we actually have the ability to overcome that challenge. Most very successful people you meet will point back to one or two major difficulties in their life where they just had to step up, they just have to face it, and where they figured out a solution, they figured out how to solve this problem, and in doing that, they built their confidence. I certainly know in my own life, I went through some major business challenges, particularly during the recession and the global financial crisis. And that really challenged me. It was really, really difficult. There was lots of problems going on around me, problems I didn't think I could overcome. But over a period of time, struggling and fighting and battling and overcoming those challenges, you begin to recognize that maybe there are strengths you didn't realize you had. And that builds a confidence. When you overcome a challenge like that, it really builds an unstoppable confidence. Confidence within yourself where you feel you can overcome any challenge you take on. But the best way to start is pick something small. If you look at your day, you will find there are lots of small goals you achieve every day. And just like going to the gym, identify some of those small challenges and acknowledge that you've overcome. And let that just settle in. Let that acknowledgement just be registered. And then push the boat out. Take on a bigger challenge. You have to continually take on bigger challenges as well. If you go to the gym and just lift the light weight, you just won't get any stronger. It doesn't matter how many reps you do. You have to push the weight if you want to continually get stronger, which means if you overcome a small challenge, that's great. Celebrate the hell out of it. Acknowledge yourself, but build. Push the challenge just a little higher and just a little higher. And every day you are developing the skill of confidence. You're training your body, your mind, your soul to recognize that you have strengths and you can overcome these challenges. Bit by bit, this will build an enormous base of confidence within you. Even if that seems a very long way away now, it will over time build if you just do the reps of building on small challenges and taking on the next small challenge. And the first and most important thing you discover about confidence is that there is no magic formula. So if confidence is something you want to develop, and if you see confidence as something that is a challenge for you, just acknowledge that you have to put the reps in. Make a decision that you are going to build a skill of confidence and recognize that it is a skill that you can develop. You may look at other people and think, oh, they're so confident, they're just naturally confident. In most cases, people are not naturally confident. Most people will fight a lack of confidence, but because they succeed at something, they go, oh, well, maybe I'm just a little bit better than I thought. And then they prove it against themselves and they earn the right to believe themselves. So go out and take on challenges so you can earn the right to believe in yourself. But the most important thing you can realize that there is no magic formula. It is simply repeating and getting better and better and stronger and stronger. But unfortunately, most people just aren't willing to walk that road. Most people are quitters. And I've said it many times in this podcast. Successful people are those who figure out what they want, focus on it, and then put in the work relentlessly, consistently until they achieve the goal they want to achieve. And the rest of the population, unsuccessful people, are people who set a goal, they go half-heartedly into it, and when they meet a challenge, an obstacle, a setback, they give up. They give up and they go and they try something else. And I call those people dabblers. And in my view, that's what most of the world is made up of. Dabblers, people will dabble in a bit of this and dabble in a bit of that. But they'll never stay at anything long enough to become exceptionally good at it, to really build a skill and to really build a confidence. And if that's your approach, if you're never allowing yourself to stick at something long enough to become really good at it, if you're a dabbler, well, it's just really hard to build confidence unless you consistently persist in achieving the goal you want to achieve. And if you're willing to fail, get up and try again, because that's what you'll find successful people do. And that's what you find people who've built confidence have done, is they have failed, they've learned the lesson, they've gotten up and they've tried again. How often do they do that? As long as it takes. They just don't stop. And that's the formula for building your confidence. Decide that you're going to build a skill of confidence. Realize it won't be easy, but also acknowledge that if you just continually do the reps, you will move the dial and you will find yourself evolving into a much more confident person. Now, along the road to building your self-confidence, be extremely careful of your self-talk. I've done episodes before on negative self-talk, and it's a big problem for people. If you set the goal of developing the skill of self-confidence, and it is a skill just like any other skill, but if you set the goal of developing that skill, and that's on one side, you've made that choice, And on the other side, you have an inner critic, an inner voice, this negative self-talk, continually complaining, continually giving out, putting you down. How do you think you're going to do in building the self-confidence? It's really going to hinder your journey. It's really going to set you back. So you've got to kill the negative self-talk. You have to start giving yourself positive affirmations. You have to start looking for opportunities to acknowledge the really good stuff you've done, and you have to start praising yourself and accepting praise. So you're going to have to kill the negative self-talk if you want to build your confidence. It will be extremely difficult to build your self-confidence if you've got this voice criticizing you all of the time. In fact, most people who really struggle with self-confidence struggle with it because they have a voice in their head that's continually telling them they're not good enough. And with that voice in your head, it's very hard to succeed. So in order to build your self-confidence, kill that voice. Don't listen to it. Bring your attention elsewhere and focus on the things you can do and the things you want to achieve, all the positive things you have done, all the positive aspects of your nature. And this is how you grow that positive voice in your life. And this is how you kill that negative voice in your life. Now, the next thing is to consciously remove yourself from people and environments that are having a negative impact on you, because we can have that inner critic, but often that inner critic results from having outer critics. So it could be in a family situation, could be a work situation, could be just your circle of friends. Do you find that you have some people around you that are just very negative and very critical? Now, they are people with low self-confidence, with low self-esteem. And they say birds of a feather flock together. But that's true. Unsuccessful people tend to gather together. Miserably unhappy people tend to gather together. But also, successful people, positive people tend to gather together because we tend to seek out those who are like us. So maybe you've drifted into an environment where you're surrounded by negative people because you were one of those negative people. It may not have been a good place to be, a pleasant place to be, but it felt like home. It felt like where you belonged. It felt like where you fit in. And if you want to build your self-confidence, and if you want to create a better life, you have to you have to remove yourself from that environment. So you do not want to be hanging around people who are going to beat up on you all the time. You'd be much better finding yourself a circle of friends who will encourage you and support you, because you do not want to be beating up on yourself internally, but you do not want to be beating up on yourself externally. I created an iTunes playlist called my Feel Good playlist. And I picked about 8 songs that really just had an energy that really made me feel good. Picked songs that I noticed every time they came on the radio or I just played them, that my energy seemed to shift. I feel like getting up and dancing. They just really, either lyrically or musically, probably both, just really set me into a positive vibe. So when I noticed these songs almost always seem to trigger positive emotions, I decided to create a feel-good playlist. So I can be driving in the car. I really know I need to jumpstart my enthusiasm and my confidence, and I switch on my feel-good playlist. And I find that after a couple of songs, it really has shifted that internal emotion. The thing about negative thinking, whether that's what's going on in our head, whether that's within our environment, is our thoughts have an enormous impact on our emotions. And our emotions have an enormous impact on how we act. And of course, how we act determines the results in our life. So when I notice I'm feeling some negative emotions, probably because I've had some negative thinking, I switch on this playlist and it just really turns it around. I just really start feeling positive. And now I have some positive momentum, and I can just take that momentum, feed it into my life. So I really recommend you finding things. Music is great, but finding things that you know that always stimulate positivity in you, and have them around you so that you can reach them when you need them. A couple of months ago, my youngest son invited me to go rock climbing with him. I don't know if you've ever been to these indoor rock climbing arenas. I have a fear of heights, so rock climbing is not going to be great for me, but I wanted to spend the afternoon with my son, so I went along. Now, he started me on some of the easy climbs, and it was very challenging, both physically challenging, but more so emotionally challenging. And what was the emotion? The emotion was fear. because I'd be climbing the wall and I would just be terrified to reach for the next grip in case I would fall. Towards the end of our first session together, we were climbing this level 5 wall and he was teaching me how to do it. And I got to the second last stage. But to reach the final stage in this, I had to release two hands from a very unsteady grip. So I was already barely hanging on my fingers. And I had to release those hands and reach up and almost jump forward to get to the final ledge. I just couldn't do it. So only yesterday, my son asked me would I go rock climbing with him again. And I did. And when I walked into the rock climbing hall, right off he said to me, let's go to the wall you couldn't do. And I said, no, I'll get back to it. He said, no, we always go straight back to the one we couldn't do. So I got onto the wall and I started climbing. But I knew my biggest challenge was going to be that last ledge, if I could reach to it. And the challenge for me reaching to it was not a physical challenge. It was courage. It was my fear. So I climbed quickly up the wall. And when I got to that last challenge, I just had to have a conversation with myself, a positive conversation with myself and go, Paul, if you're going to ever do this, you need the courage to do this immediately now. And in that moment, I just jumped and I reached the top. It's such a great feeling to finally complete the climb. But if I'd had a different set of thinking and if I had different language, I never would have made that. So if in that moment I had allowed my mind to drift towards that negativity, if I'd start telling myself all the things I couldn't do, all the things that could go wrong, if I started telling myself I wasn't strong enough, I wasn't brave enough, I had a fear of heights, if I let those thoughts into my head, they would have fueled a very strong emotion of fear. And of course, fear would have changed the action I was willing to take. And there's no way I could have taken that final leap from a place of fear. And of course, I would have never completed the climb. So life is very, very similar to that. Any situation, we have to be very careful what's going on with our thinking, because what's going on with our thinking is ultimately going to lead to the end result. So you just want to make sure you're creating an environment for you that builds and nourishes your self-esteem and your self-confidence. You do not want to be in an environment that's knocking that down. So look around you. What are the things you have to bring into your environment? And what are the things and the people that you may need to remove from your environment if you truly want to develop the skill of self-confidence? And of course, developing that skill of self-confidence can have a really positive impact in your life because it can get you to feel the emotion and take the actions that will ultimately create for you the life that you want to live. The bottom line about building the skill of self-confidence is you're going to have to choose a perspective. There will always be things that challenge you. There will always be times when we feel imposter syndrome. There will always be times when we feel we're just not good enough, we're just not ready. And you have to choose a perspective in those moments. You can choose a perspective that supports the negativity, that says, yeah, I'm really not good enough, I can't do this. Or you can choose a perspective that says, well, I may not be good enough just yet, but I'm good enough to try, and I'm willing to try, and I'm willing to fail. And when I fail, my perspective will be, what have I learned? And then I will start again, and I will try again. Hey, maybe I'm going to fail again, but if I fail again, I will learn something new. That was my exact journey on the rock climbing wall. You would make an attempt on the wall and you'd find, oh, I only got to level 3 and then I fell down or I had to climb back down. And then you would get back down and you would analyze the wall, or you would talk to someone already who had climbed the wall and they'd go, when you get to that level, put your foot here and put your hand here and you go, now I'm going to do it. I'm going to try again. And you might try that again and not be able to do it. But when you came down, you would begin to think, okay, what can I do differently? That's exactly what life is. That's the perspective you need. If you're going to fail and your perspective is, I'm a loser, you're not going to have any self-confidence. You're going to get nowhere. But if you try and if you fail, and if your perspective is, this is learning, then you will try again. If you try again, you will succeed. In that trying, there will be lots of small successes, and those successes will continually build your confidence. But remember, there's no magic formula. There's just a development of a habit, and there's just continual practice. Choose to be self-confident and choose the habits. Choose to walk the road and choose to practice those things that will build your self-confidence. confidence. Thank you for listening. I'm Paul Ryan. This was the Inner Entrepreneur Podcast. Please do like and subscribe. It really helps the show. Thank you for listening. Until next time, take care.